This is a brief summary of the ACT profile report. In this report, we're going to be looking at the district, but what we discuss here will correspond to the school level report. As we go through the report, just keep in mind that the data you will find in this report are from the last sitting of the ACT for students that graduated in 2021. Therefore, a student in this report may have taken the ACT as a junior and only once, while another student may have taken the ACT twice, once as a junior and once as a senior, but only the most recent sitting will be captured in this report. In this report, you're going to see much about the ACT College Readiness benchmarks. So the benchmarks are as follows. For English, the College Readiness benchmark is 18. For math and reading, it's 22. For science, it's 23. And for STEM, it's 26. The ELA benchmark is 20, but only for students who opted for the ACT with writing. A benchmark score is the minimum score needed on an ACT subject area test to indicate a 50% chance of obtaining a B or higher, or a 75% chance of obtaining a C or higher in the corresponding credit-bearing college course. The STEM benchmark is the highest of all ACT readiness benchmarks. STEM majors can be expected to dive right into college calculus, chemistry, biology, physics, and engineering courses, and an ACT STEM score of 26 or higher is associated with a 50% chance of earning a B or higher and a 75% chance of earning a C or higher in these entry-level STEM courses. In this video, we're only going to focus on certain pages. So one of the pages I want to look at is page 6. On this page, there are 4 figures. Notice that on this page, you only have 5 years of testing. It's always 5 years of testing, so the previous 5 years. So the first figure, figure 1.1, discusses the average composite score. Now, right above that, you'll see the total number of students in this report from the graduating class of 2021. So for EBR, there were 2,260 students in this report. Last year, 2020, 2021, the blue represents the district, the green represents the state. The average composite score for EBR was 16.9. For the state, it was 18.4. And you can go back to the previous years, as you see, and look at the average composite scores for those years. In figure 1.2, this indicates the percent meeting 3 or 4 benchmarks. So those are the benchmarks we mentioned earlier: English, math, reading, science, STEM, and ELA. And so last year, for 2020, 2021, 15% of EBR students met 3 or 4 benchmarks. And the state, it was 23%. And you can go back to previous years for that one as well. In figure 1.3, so figure 1.3, percent meeting STEM benchmarks. So last year, only 6% of our students met the STEM benchmark of 26. Now, STEM benchmark of 26 is comprised of the math and science part of the ACT test. For the state, it was 9%. So that was a decrease from the previous year of 2019-2020, where it was 8% who met the STEM benchmark. Figure 1.4, this is a percent taking a core curriculum. Now, just let me warn you that these numbers are based on student survey. For figure 1.4, those numbers are based on what the students indicated they were taking in high school. So according to figure 1.4, for last year, 44% of our students stated that they were taking a core curriculum. 9% stated that they were taking less than a core curriculum. On page 7, go to page 7, table 1.1, indicates the percent of students who met college readiness benchmark. So again, it goes back 5 years. If you look at the last year, though, 2021, there were 2,260 students in the district that are included in this report. For English, remember, this is percent of students who met benchmarks. 33% of the students met the English benchmark. So remember, the English benchmark is 18. For math, 13% of our students met the math benchmark of 22. For reading, remember the reading benchmark is 22. 22% of our students met it. In science, 23 is the science benchmark. Only 15% of our students met the science benchmark. And of those four that you see here, English, math, reading, science, only 9% of our students met all four benchmarks. If you go to table 1.2, the average ACT scores. So again, there are 2,260 students in this report. The average ACT score for English is 16.2. The math score for EBR was 16.8. For the state, it was 17.8. For reading, it was 17.0. For science, it was 17.1. And the composite of those 2,260 students in this report is 16.9. And then you'll see in table 1.3, they indicate the average scores nationwide. Now on page 8, table 1.4, the average ACT scores by level of preparation. Again, this is what students indicated on their survey they had to complete. So according to ACT, if you look at footnote number 1, core or more results correspond to students taking 4 or more years of English and 3 or more years of math, social studies, and natural science. So if you look at the number of students tested for 2021, there were 1,400 students who indicated they took a core or more curriculum. There were 198 that indicated they took less than core. So 44% of our students indicated they took core more, 9% indicated they took less. Now, the reason it doesn't add up to 100%, if you look at footnote number 2, is because the reason that it does not add up to 100% is because some students did not respond to the survey. But of those students who did respond indicating they took core or more, the average English score was 18.9. Those that took less than core, it was 14.3. For math, of those students who took the survey, 18.4 was the average math score for those who took core or more, and 15.3 was the average math score for those students who took less than core. If you look at reading, it was 19.2 for core or more, 15.3 for less than core. For science, 19.0 core or more, 15.4 less than core. And the composite, for those students who took core or more, was 19.0, less than core, it was 15.2. So obviously, the more English the students take, the more math, social studies, and science, natural sciences the students take, the better they will perform on the ACT test. The next page I want you to look at is page 9, table 1.6. So this is the achievement in STEM. So if you look at, and again, it's the previous 5 years, but if you look at 2021, the number of students tested was 2,260, or the number of students in this report was 2,260. So of all the students tested, the average STEM score was 17.2 for our district. The percent meeting STEM benchmark was 6%. The next part, you'll see students meeting STEM benchmarks. Of those students who met the STEM benchmark, remember there's only 6% who met the STEM benchmark. Of those students, though, the average math score for our students in this district is 28.8. The average science score, 29.7. Then another important table you really should look at is the proficiency in understanding complex text. Let's look at the footnote first. It says the text complexity indicator, beginning in fall 2015, represents students' progress towards understanding complex written material often encountered in college and careers. So you'll see it broken down in terms of below proficient, proficient, and above proficient. So if you look at below proficient, the number of our students who of the 2,260 students, the number of students in this report, 1,728 were below proficient in text complexity proficiency level. That represents 76% of our students in this report. The average reading score was 14.3 on the ACT. For those that are proficient, only 305 of those students were considered proficient. That's 13%, and their average reading score is 22.5. For those that were above proficient, the number was 227. That's 10% of the students in this report. Those students, those 227 students, their average reading score was 30.6. The next page I want you to look at is page 13. And so, again, we're looking at 2,260 students in this report. So table 2.1 indicates the ACT score distributions, the cumulative percents, and the score averages. So notice on the left-hand side you have the ACT scale score. Then you have information about English, math, reading, science, composite, STEM, ELA, and you have the same ACT score scale on the right-hand side as well. So let's talk about what these columns mean. So let's look at English. So English, you'll see an N. So N represents the number of students at that scale score. So for example, if you look at English, and we're going to look at 34, the scale score 34, there are 22 students. There are 22 students who scored a 22 in English. In math, if you look at 34 again, there are only 6 students. So that's what that means. That's what that column N means. So only 6 students, if you look at English again, only 6 students scored a 36 in English. For math, you'll notice that only 9 students in this report scored a 36 in math. Okay? So if you look at the scale score 18, so 18 for English, there were 49 students that scored an 18. There were 86 that scored a 19, 94 that scored a 20, and so on. All right, and you read that across the columns. Okay, but let's look at cumulative percent. Okay, so you see that you'll see a gray, some is a little grayish, and then you have the white part. Okay, so if you look at English, so remember this, the benchmark for English is 18. So notice that at 18, that's where the lightly colored purple or grayish area starts. Now, what that means is this. So if you look at that white part right here where it says 67 for English on the cumulative percent, 67% of our students scored below benchmark for English. That's what that means, because remember the benchmark for English is 18. So 67% scored below benchmark. For math, 87% scored below benchmark, because remember the benchmark for math is 22. 87% scored below benchmark. For reading, it was 78% that scored below benchmark. For science, it was 85% that scored below benchmark. So remember the benchmark for science is 23. So you see that's where it starts. So for science, it was 85% below benchmark. For STEM, it was even more dramatic. It was 94% below benchmark. And then for ELA, you got to be a little bit careful with this, because remember, most of our students take the test through state testing. Most do not take the test through national testing. So in state testing, we do not give the writing test. But you'll see that the ELA, that benchmark, includes the writing test. And so not many students take the writing test, and if they do take it, it's during national testing. So for the benchmark, though, for ELA, only 40% of our students were below benchmark. Okay, so let's look at the composite. So let's look at a composite. So if you look at the composites, the ACT scale score of 18, and you go across to the composite column, so 18, let's see, that's going to be what, 70? So 70% of our students scored 18 or below on the ACT test. And you can keep on going. You look at that 91% here. So 91% of our students scored 24 or below. So that's how you read this table. So this is the ACT score distribution, cumulative percent, and score ranges. Now there's one other report, one other page I want you to look at, and that's the page 14. That's page 14, and that's where they break down the reporting categories. So this is important for instructional purposes. So notice that the English reporting categories, there are 3 of them: production of writing, knowledge of language, convention of standard English. For math, there are a little bit more. So these are the math reporting categories. So preparing for higher math, with abbreviated as PHM. And you have number and quantity, algebra, functions, geometry, statistics, probability, integrating essential skills, and modeling. Then for reading, you have those reporting categories, and then you have science. Now, let's look at those numbers. So if you look at English, production of writing, what that means is this: 33% of our students met the ACT readiness range for that reporting category. So production of writing, 33% were college ready for that reporting category. For knowledge of language, only 39% of our students were in that ACT readiness range for that reporting category. Math is much worse than the others. So if you look at math, for preparing for higher math, only 12% of our students were in that readiness range. And then it breaks it down into number and quantity, algebra, functions, geometry, and so on. So these are pretty low numbers for math. And that math and that science, which is further down, does affect the STEM score that the students get. So every student will get a STEM score. So this is all the pages I want you to look at. So there are other pages involved in this report, this profile report, but those are the ones I wanted you to look at this point. So that's going to end the brief summary of the ACT profile report.